and gentlemen, our next speaker is a young leader dedicated to driving change through initiative and advocacy. Matej Styk is a Secretary General of the Bratislava MUN for 2023 and 2024. Beyond MUN, he founded the MUN Association of Slovakia, and he's a passionate advocate for student voices. Tonight, he'll share his insights on the importance of initiative and how our personal values and passion can inspire meaningful change through action. Please join me in welcoming Matej on stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now picture this. It's a very pleasant evening. I'm having a very nice nap when all of a sudden I wake up and realize that I have a history essay due in 2 hours. Now, faced with this conundrum, I have two options. Either I rush out of bed, go to my laptop, start typing this essay about Tsarist opposition movements in Russia, finish it in the deadline and hope for the best and getting a good grade. Or I could tuck in the covers, pretend that the essay does not exist, hope for the best, and go back to sleep. And this was a very, very difficult decision. I went back to sleep. And naturally, I am a master at rationalization. I told myself, what's the worst that I got a 0. Now, for those of you unaware of this academic grading system, a 0 is pretty much the equivalent of a slap across the face. It's not good. It's not good at all. Now, at this point, you might be thinking that this talk will be about how I vowed vengeance and that I would burn every single history textbook in my school. I would be tried for arson, put in jail, got out of jail, and now, as a criminal turned good, I would be giving you a motivational speech. Not quite, but close. I love history. It's my favorite subject. I'm the type of guy that you could ask any single question about a historical period, and for some reason I inherently know the answer. No, this is about something more. Around this time, I realized that I was living lethargically. I was living lazily. I was incredibly bored, I'd browse my phone to no end. I'd consume copious amounts of useless content. I was not doing anything efficient with my time. My passions, my interests, whether it be history, argumentation, politics, were simply not being used at the capacity that they were supposed to. I was not realizing my potential, and I was not realizing my dreams. Around this time, however, a friend of mine approached me and asked me whether I'd join her at the Model United Nations workshop at our school. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Model United Nations, or MUN for short, is, it's essentially a simulation of the actual workings of the United Nations, where young people, whether it be high schoolers or university students, engage in diplomatic discourse on some of the most pressing global issues today in debating committees. Now, when she explained this to me, I thought it was incredibly nerdy, but I complied, and I went to the workshop, and it was actually really good. I signed up for the conference they were advocating for, and lo and behold, in October 2022, I participated in my very first Model United Nations conference here in Bratislava at the Comenius University. And I prepared diligently. It was a historical topic about the power game called the Great Game between the Russian Empire and Great Britain. I represented the sublime state of Persia. I read all the historical documents that there were. I truly prepared for this conference. After all, history was my passion. I thought that I could win this, I could out-debate everyone, that the knowledge that I gained from simple research was enough to beat everyone at this committee and gain all that the sublime state of Persia needed. When I got to this conference, I soon realized that something was wrong. I mean, the people around me had the same knowledge as me, perhaps even less sometimes. But the way they debated, the way they advocated for their issues was far superior to mine. They could make the compromises that I could not. They could debate with their enemies when I simply could not. And I was confused by this. Why was this the case? Why could they do it and I couldn't? And I talked to them during the breaks at this conference. I was like, how do you do it? How do you actually know how to debate so well? And they started explaining how they've been to many MUN conferences in the past, how this is definitely not their first experience, how over time they've gained the experiences through their initiative in order to be able to be effective debaters. And this is truly when I started realizing they were pretty much me, only a couple of years into the future. They had the same passion for history, for politics, for debating as I had. But they had taken that initiative and they actually did something with it. And in the process, they developed their argumentational skills to the point where they could hold their own in a committee as advanced as this one. This concept, I mean, as an impressionable young man at that time, I certainly did not believe it and I was still hesitant, but it really was ratified a couple of hours later when one of the delegates was delivering a speech. And the other delegate next to me, he was representing the Russian Empire, and keep in mind that he had a full-on historical outfit, like it was really something out of a movie. The delegate said something in his speech, and I noticed him, the one sitting next to me, spark up, reach into his backpack, pull out a 500-page historical textbook, list a specific page in that textbook with a specific statistic, wait for the delegate to finish his speech, raise his placard and ask the question, "Delegate, do you understand that what you just said goes directly against the statistic?" I was flabbergasted. I was literally like this. I thought it was fascinating how someone could really develop their insights into a topic so deeply that they're willing and able to essentially engage in discourse such as this. And I grew in love. This MUN concept was exhilarating, chaotic, enjoyable, informative, and really, really, really nerdy. After this first experience, I realized that this is something that I wanted to pursue. The people that I met there were fascinating, the topics being discussed, really engaging. My passion for history, my interest for politics, they could truly be realized in this debating format. And whether it took one textbook, two textbooks, or three textbooks, I was to become the best debater in the format there was. And so I tried. I went all around Europe, all around Slovakia, going through one conference another. I met like-minded individuals who now have become some of my closest friends. I debated, I represented every nation I could possibly think of. At the end, I got bored. Now, how was this the case? I thought that this was the end. I thought I was finally fulfilling my passions, that I was reaching the initiative that I'd always dreamed for, that I was not being lazy anymore. But that was not the case. I got bored again. And I contemplated for a while. I wondered, how is this possible? How to get out of this? And I realized that I had already found the variable. Reaching further, developing your insights further, and pushing that initiative is what I needed again. And me and a couple of my friends got together, sat around the table, brainstormed for a little bit, and we reached the answer. All of us had been to conferences all around Europe. We had seen exactly what one needed from a logistical, from an academic, from a social aspect at such conferences. And we devised a plan to craft the perfect conference. And here is where the Bratislava Model United Nations comes in. This was an initiative that was at our school, the Gymnázium of Jura Hronca, for almost 20 years. The first one was held in 2001. But with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, it was cancelled, and for 3 successive years after that, it was not organized. The passion died down, a community of like-minded individuals who organized it went away and graduated, and, well, there was no one to organize it anymore. All the knowledge that was passed down died down, and we pretty much had to start from ground zero. This was a passion, and this was a challenge that would get me out of this boredom, and so we began. In 2023, we organized the Bratislava Model United Nations Renewal Edition, which, as a matter of fact, coincided with the 20th anniversary of the conference. We welcomed delegates from the entire world. We had personal messages from the President of the Slovak Republic, Zuzana Čaputová. And we continued in 2024. That one now is the largest youth political conference in Slovakia, over 220 participants. We had 70 active volunteers throughout the conference, 30 members of the organizational team, distinguished guests from the Slovak and international political sphere delivering speeches. We had an international delegate audience spanning Zambia, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, all of these countries. But again, I got bored. And this time, I have understood that despite making these initiatives, despite bringing so much joy to people, similarly to how much joy that first conference gave me in October 2022, I realized there's so many more initiatives that I could push myself to further bring my message forward. And so I did. I joined the European Parliament as a volunteer, UNICEF as a youth ambassador, youth politics as a representative of a high school organization. I participated in academic essay writing for public policy. I started the MUN Association of Slovakia, sharing this enlightenment to more students in Slovakia. I participate in school leadership in my school. And I do workshops and presentations like these all around Slovakia. Because that's the real kicker, isn't it? Passion is great. Interest is fantastic. But without initiative, it's nothing. If you don't actively seek out those challenges, those passions, those problems that perhaps you might face, well, you can't really do anything about that passion or about that interest. If I had not participated in that MUN workshop all those years ago, where my friend convinced me to, I would not be here speaking to you today. I would probably still be under my blanket watching some sort of alternate history video about what if Napoleon won his wars. And this is where the story comes into full circle. 2 weeks ago, I had to submit another history essay. And I was faced with a very difficult choice to submit it or to not submit it. And I didn't submit it. And you might be looking at me, Matej, what's the point of this talk? I thought there was supposed to be some sort of message. Why have we stood here for 13 minutes without any concrete message? I got another 0, but there was a different reason for why I didn't submit it this time. I was at an international conference in Budapest for OBESU, which is the Organizing Bureau of European Secondary School Unions, an organization at the height of European power entities which allows student voices to be heard to these organizations. I had a program from morning to dusk. I simply did not have time to write this essay. And I told all of this to my teacher. I told, as a matter of fact, it happened to be the same teacher that gave me the 0 all those years ago. I said, Mr. Teacher, I really apologize, but I think what I'm doing here is important. I think representing student Slovak voices at this international stage should be respected, and I promise that I'll do the essay again and that I'll dedicate the time that it necessitates in a couple of days when I find the time to do it. And he accepted. I was surprised. The 0 went away, and I got to write the essay, I got the best grade, and I had finally been realizing my passions. It was not a matter of lethargy, of boredom anymore. It was a matter of actually realizing my initiatives and going out there and not putting my passion in the background of life. And that is something I appeal to all of you. Now, it sounds really comical from someone that's 17 years old to be giving you life advice. But if I, of all people, can go out there and seek out these challenges, seek out these problems, start that interesting idea that no one believed would actually succeed, well, I have to say that you definitely can. Thank you.